there's a nice, quiet, scenic creek not far from my house. I like to drive my kayak up to it every once in a while on the weekends in the summer. This one particular weekend was one of those weekends. The weather was perfect, sunny and in the 70s. I had kayaked down this creek a bunch of times, and never had I seen anyone else kayaking it. That was part of the reason I liked it. I'm a very reserved person, and I prefer to do things alone, preferably with some privacy. I set out on the kayak not far from where I parked my car, which was in a gravelly dirt parking area right off the road. There was one other car that pulled in a few minutes after I did, which was unusual. I had never seen any other cars here except my own. About 20 minutes into my kayaking, someone emerged from the woods ahead of me, approaching the edge of the water. He stopped, waved at me, and smiled. He put his hands on his hips and greeted me, clearly expecting me to stop and chat. I instantly knew I didn't like his smile, but my mother raised me to be polite to everyone, so I stopped paddling and returned his greeting. There was an awkward pause. He just stood there, nodding his head with a closed-lipped smile. I felt the need to break the silence, so I said, "It's a beautiful day out." He nodded and replied, "Yup," then asked where I was from. I made something up and said I was from up north, just visiting. He clearly lacked the ability to hold any sort of conversation, and that's saying something coming from me, since I'm not the most social person myself. Wanting to move along, I told him to have a great rest of his day and continued onward down the creek. Never in a million years did I expect what happened next. I turned when I heard a snap of a stick or something from not far behind me. There in the not-so-far distance was the guy hiding behind a couple of trees, seemingly following me. I was disturbed and uncomfortable. He was clearly trying not to be seen. I was scared to call him out for fear of how he might respond, so I pretended not to notice him and continued to kayak down the creek. I kept side-glancing every so often to see if he was still following me, and he was. I had never wanted to see someone else in the water so much in my life. I took out my phone to try to call my dad or my brother for help, but of course, I had no cell reception out there. Instead of being followed and possibly attacked, I decided to stop, turn around, and threaten to call the police if he didn't stop following me. The man just stood in place behind a big tree, though he was clear as day. In that moment, I decided to fake call the cops. I raised my phone in the air at the man and said, "I see you there. I'm calling them now." I then proceeded to pretend to have a conversation with the police. Miraculously, the man started to walk away deeper into the woods. It seemed to have worked. I turned around immediately and started kayaking back up the way I had come, as fast as I possibly could. I constantly looked over my shoulder until I got back to where I launched the kayak. I made it safely and checked my surroundings before stepping out of the water to carry my kayak back to my car. The other car in the little parking area was still there, but I made a disturbing discovery that may have saved my life. Up until this point, everything that had happened could maybe be explained away. However, I noticed broken glass near the back of my car, and the back passenger side window was gone. It had been shattered. I didn't step 1 foot closer to my car. I stayed hidden in the woods and checked if I had any bars on my phone. Now that I was closer to the road, I did, and I called 911 successfully. I reported the whole incident, including the broken window, and stated I was scared I was still being followed. Waiting for the police to arrive felt like the longest, most tense moment of my life. It dragged on far too long. When they finally pulled into the dirt area, I emerged from the woods and waved at them. I pointed to my car, and 2 police officers approached the vehicle, where they found him, the man from the woods, waiting in the back seat of my car, hiding, waiting for me to enter so he could grab me. It was beyond satisfying to see him arrested. He definitely wasn't smiling anymore. I looked at him. It almost seemed like he was avoiding my gaze as he was taken to the police car. I was relieved he was so foolish that he thought I wouldn't notice the shattered glass all over the side of my car.